The secret Alan Watts knew about beating the game of life. Imagine for a moment that life isn't what you think it is. Not a journey with a destination, not a ladder to climb, not a problem to solve or a puzzle to complete. What if life is actually a game, but not a game you win by trying harder or being smarter? What if the only way to beat this game is to stop playing it by the rules you were taught? That's the secret Alan Watts knew, and it's a secret that changes everything. Because from the moment we're born, we're indoctrinated into a system that tells us how to live. Go to school, get a job, find someone to love, make money, be successful, retire, and one day, die. That's the loop. That's the game. And the cruel trick is, no matter how well you play, you always end up feeling like something's missing. That's because the rules are rigged. The goalposts always move. You hit one milestone, and the next one pops up. Graduate, get a job, get a better job, get a better job. Find love, find the right love. Get rich, get richer. Be happy, but also be productive, attractive, respected, admired, and enlightened. It's endless. And no matter how far you go, it never feels quite right. Have you ever had that sense? Like you're doing everything right, but still feel like a fraud? Like you're playing a part in someone else's movie? Like your life is being lived at you instead of by you? That's not failure, that's awareness. That's the first crack in the game. And Watts knew it. He saw through it. He realized that the game of life only traps you when you believe it's real. But the moment you see it for what it is, an elaborate performance, a cosmic play, a school with no final exam, you begin to wake up. And that's when the real fun begins. Because here's the secret. The game isn't meant to be won. It's meant to be played. You were never supposed to arrive. You were supposed to dance. Watts said, "We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end. The thing was to get to that end. Success, or whatever it is, maybe heaven after you're dead. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played." That line alone could dismantle your entire life strategy.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Think about it. When was the last time you did something just for the joy of it, without trying to monetize it, post it, improve at it, or explain it? When was the last time you played like a child without needing a reason? That's what Watts was pointing to, not irresponsibility, but presence. The radical act of being here, fully, without needing the moment to be anything other than what it is. That's the way out of the game, not by quitting life, but by changing how you show up to it. So many of us are stuck in roles we didn't choose. We're pretending to be adults, pretending to have it all together, pretending we know what we're doing. But deep down, there's a part of us that knows it's all theater. And that's not a problem, it's a gift. Because the moment you realize it's all play, you stop taking it so seriously. You stop measuring your worth by achievements. You stop comparing your backstage to everyone else's highlight reel. You start laughing more. You start creating more. You start living. But here's the twist. The system doesn't want you to know this. The system benefits from your anxiety. If you believe you're not enough, you'll keep buying things to fix yourself. If you believe success is just around the corner, you'll keep grinding. If you believe happiness is a reward, not a state of being, you'll keep running in circles. That tension is the fuel of the machine. And Watts saw it. He didn't rage against it. He didn't try to burn it down. He just stepped outside of it, with a smile, with a laugh, with a question. And here's the question I want to ask you. What if you stopped trying to win? What if you stopped playing the game by the rules you were handed and started playing by the rules of your own design? What if there's nothing to become, only someone to be? Because the moment you see life as a game, not a race, not a test, not a burden, you open a door that leads to something radically different. You step into play, into mystery, into freedom. You stop performing and start participating. You stop waiting for life to begin and realize it's happening now, this breath, this moment, this heartbeat. And yes, the bills still need paying. The dishes still need washing. But even those things can become part of the dance. Because it's not about escaping responsibility, it's about changing your relationship to it. When you stop trying to get somewhere, you start noticing where you are. And that is the essence of what Watts taught. Not a doctrine, not a dogma, just a mirror held up to reality, inviting you to look again. So let me ask you another question. If you had nothing to prove, if life wasn't a test, what would you still choose to do? What would you still love? What would you still be curious about? That's the path. That's your signal. That's the real secret to beating the game. Watts didn't tell people what to do. He reminded them who they already were. And that's what we're doing here. Not giving you a new belief system, but inviting you to drop the old ones. To laugh at the game, dance through the illusion, and live from the center of your own being. The game was never real. Why chasing anything only pushes it away? Here's the paradox Alan Watts understood better than almost anyone else. The more you chase something, the more it runs. The more you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. The moment you want something desperately, love, success, happiness, even enlightenment, you create the very conditions that prevent it from unfolding naturally. And that's not just poetic. That's physics of the inner world. That's the secret thread running through Zen, Taoism, Vedanta, and every mystical tradition that Watts explored and translated for the West. The game isn't just unwinnable, it's make-believe. And the moment you try to win it, you've already lost. Let's think about desire for a second. Most of us are living in a state of subtle hunger. We're always reaching, striving, future-tripping. We want peace, so we meditate, but we get annoyed that it's not working fast enough. We want love, so we date, but we obsess over texts, signals, outcomes. We want purpose, so we chase projects and goals, but we feel behind, stuck, anxious. Why? Because we've smuggled the same old game into every new spiritual disguise. If I just do this right, I'll finally be okay. But Watts would laugh gently and say, "You're trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It can't be done. You can't use your mind to escape your mind. You can't use effort to reach a state that's beyond effort, and that's why chasing keeps pushing it away." It's like trying to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you feel. Why? Because trying implies a separation, a gap between where you are and where you think you should be. But what if there is no gap? What if the whole illusion of getting somewhere is what's keeping you running in circles? Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. That panic is the game. The anxiety is the engine, and the only way to win is to stop playing. But here's where it gets subtle. Stopping the chase doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean giving up. It means dropping the illusion that your life will begin later. It means seeing that what you're looking for is already here, just hidden beneath layers of wanting. It means trusting that the moment doesn't need to be improved, that you don't need to be fixed, that who you are right now without the striving is already whole. This isn't a motivational slogan. It's a truth that can't be reached by effort, only by surrender. So then the question becomes, how do we live if not by chasing? And Watts would say, by playing. Like a musician improvises, like a dancer moves. You don't dance to get somewhere. You dance to dance. You don't play music to reach the final note. You play because of how it feels along the way. That's the mode of being that ends the game, not because you've beat it, but because you've transcended the idea that there was anything to beat in the first place. Think about how much of your life energy has been spent trying to achieve happiness. Now imagine what would happen if you stopped trying and just noticed. Noticed the breath, the light through the window, the sound of your own laugh, the miracle of being conscious at all. Most of us are so busy looking for the extraordinary that we miss the ordinary, which is far more miraculous than we realize. And yes, the ego hates this. It wants something to do. It wants a goal. It wants control. But Watts reminds us that control is an illusion, that life is more like a river than a road. You don't push the river. You flow with it. You stop fighting the current and you begin to trust. That doesn't mean you don't act. It means your actions come from alignment, not anxiety, from presence, not panic, from joy, not desperation. So here's the deep question. What are you still chasing? And what would happen if you stopped? Not as a trick, not to secretly still win, but truly stopped. Could it be that what you were chasing was never separate from you in the first place? That's the game. That's the secret. That's the great cosmic joke. Alan Watts laughed at his entire life and invited us to laugh at too. The game was never real. The finish line doesn't exist. And once you see that, You don't become passive. You become free. The joy of the joke, how laughter, play, and paradox are the most serious forms of wisdom. The deeper you go into philosophy, the more you realize something strange. The wisest people are often the ones laughing the hardest. Not out of mockery, but out of freedom. Out of seeing that life is not a solemn courtroom where you're constantly on trial, but more like a surreal circus where the tightrope walker, the clown, and the magician are all you. Alan Watts understood this better than most. He didn't dress his wisdom in robes of solemnity, he wore it lightly, like a jester who knew that the real truth is too vast to be captured by seriousness alone. And here's where things get really interesting. When we think of wisdom, we often picture stillness, depth, maybe even sadness. But Watts flipped that on its head. He showed us that the most profound truths often come wrapped in paradoxes and punchlines. That laughter isn't the opposite of depth, it's the confirmation of it. Why? Because laughter is surrender. It's the body's way of saying, okay, I get it. I can't control this. I might as well enjoy the ride. It's the sound of the ego cracking, even for a moment, under the weight of something it can't understand. And in that crack, something real slips through. Watts frequently used humor to dismantle the very structures people clung to for safety, religion, identity, ambition, even spiritual seeking. He'd tell you to meditate, then laugh at the idea of someone trying to achieve enlightenment. He'd speak of the universe as a game of hide and seek where you are both the one hiding and the one seeking. You forget who you are just to remember it again. That's the cosmic joke. That's the divine comedy. And it's not cynical, it's liberating. Have you ever noticed how children play? They go all in. They become the dragon, the astronaut, the hero, completely immersed. But at any moment they can snap out of it and burst into laughter. They remember it was just a game. That's wisdom. Not forgetting the play, but remembering that it is play. Most adults get stuck in the role. We become so identified with our character, our job, our trauma, our name that we forget we're the ones imagining it all. And then we suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because we take the illusion too seriously. Watts wasn't telling us to stop playing. He was telling us to remember that we're playing. That's the joy. That's the joke. That's the paradox. You can still act, still love, still build, still create, but with a lightness, a laughter, a recognition that none of it defines you. Because the moment it does, you're trapped. You've become the mask. But when you laugh, really laugh, you return to the source. You remember your true face. So here's a deep question. When was the last time you laughed at yourself without judgment? Not in shame, but in delight. In recognition that your seriousness was a kind of costume, and that underneath it, you've always been free. That's what Watts pointed to when he spoke of divine play, the Sanskrit term lila. The universe, he said, is not a machine. It's not a battlefield. It's art, music, a dance. And we're not here to fix it, we're here to join in. Even the darkest moments, he suggested, contain a strange beauty. Not because suffering is good, but because it's part of the story, part of the drama. And when we stop resisting it, when we allow it to move through us, we find something deeper than comfort. We find connection to everything, to each other, to the vast, mysterious intelligence that animates this whole dance. And yet, the moment we try to explain it, it slips away. That's the paradox. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The truth that can be named is not the whole truth. So we laugh. Not because we've given up, but because we've let go. We've stopped trying to hold the ocean in a teacup. We've stopped trying to trap the infinite in language. We've stepped back, breathed in, and finally seen the absurd, glorious, ridiculous beauty of it all. So the next time life gets heavy, when the bills pile up, when the news overwhelms, when your plans collapse, just pause. Breathe. And remember the joke. Not to avoid the pain, but to see through it. To remember that behind the drama, behind the roles, behind even the suffering, there's a music playing, and you're part of it. You always have been. You are always the player. Why the final unlock is realizing you created the game. If there's one final twist to everything Alan Watts taught, it's this. You're not just in the game, you made it. Not you, the person with a name and a social security number, but the deeper you, the one behind the eyes, the one watching thoughts pass like clouds, the one that was never born and never dies. That's not metaphor. That's not poetic flourish. That's the final unlock. And once you see it, you don't just beat the game of life, you wake up from it. Watts often said that our fundamental mistake is identifying with the ego, the little self, the story in our heads. We think we're the actor on the stage, forgetting that we're also the writer, the director, the audience, and the theater itself. The ego is the character, but the self, the true self, is the consciousness playing that character. And the tragedy of modern life is that we've forgotten the player. We've become so entangled in the script that we think it's real. We think we are the role. But what happens when the actor remembers the stage? What happens when the dreamer becomes lucid inside the dream? Everything changes. Suddenly, you see that the fears, the limitations, the rules, they were part of the story you wrote for yourself. Not because you wanted to suffer, but because you wanted to experience, to taste contrast, to feel the illusion of separation so that the reunion would be ecstasy. Because what use is light if you've never known darkness? What value is love if you've never felt alone? And here's the wildest part. None of this is new. Every mystic tradition has said it in one form or another. Tat Twamasi, you are that. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Brahman and Atman are one. Watts didn't invent these ideas, he just translated them for a world that had forgotten how to listen. A world obsessed with doing, having, becoming, starving for being. So let's unpack this. What does it mean to realize you created the game? It means taking radical ownership not of your circumstances, but of your consciousness. It means seeing that your entire reality is filtered through the lens of your perception, that your thoughts aren't just reactions, they're creative acts, that your beliefs shape your experience more than any external force, and that you have the power right now to choose a different lens. But, and this is crucial, it's not about control. It's not about using this knowledge to manipulate life into giving you what you want. That's just another version of the game. The real shift happens when you stop needing life to be any way at all. When you realize that the player doesn't need the game to end. The player came here to play, to explore, to lose and forget and fall and rise and remember. And when you see that, really see it, everything softens. You forgive yourself. You forgive others. You stop clinging so tightly to outcomes. You start living with a kind of sacred irreverence, a light-hearted seriousness. You still show up. You still care. But your identity is no longer entangled in the script. You're free. And what a relief that is, to finally take off the mask and remember the face beneath it. So let me leave you with one last question, the kind that can echo in your mind for days if you're brave enough to sit with it. What if you've already arrived? What if there's nothing left to prove? Nothing to become? What if the whole journey was a circle and you've been home the whole time? The secret Alan Watts knew about beating the game of life wasn't a cheat code or shortcut. It was a reminder, a whisper from the deepest part of ourselves saying, you were never lost, you only thought you were. And now that you remember, what will you do with your freedom? Because the game is still here, the world still spins. But now, you know. Now, you play not to win, not to escape, but to dance. Because you are the music. You are the dreamer. You are the player. And this is your move.